Hey everyone, and welcome to my review of Power Rangers Battle for the Grid Super Edition. This review is specific to the Super Edition of the game, which is already available right now digitally. However, the physical release will be out on August 10th, 2021, so I thought I'd just throw this review out there to help anyone who might be considering picking up the physical version of the game. But before we get into the review, as always, I want to thank everyone for the huge amount of support on the channel recently. We are getting so close to the goal of 500 subscribers, so if you find this video useful and you want to see more like it, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny, it helps the channel grow, and of course, I'd really appreciate it. So for anyone who's just finding my content, let me briefly tell you how reviews work here. First, I'm going to give you all the factual information about the game, what it is, what it does, and what it's all about. Then we'll move into personal opinion territory, where I'll tell you all the things I liked about the game, then the things I didn't like about the game. After that, we'll end the video with a conclusion and a recommendation section. I don't usually cover every little detail, and that's just to make sure that the video doesn't run too long. But if there's something you want to know, please feel free to ask me in the comments section down below. Okay, so what's the game all about then? Well, the Super Edition is essentially a re-release of the original Battle for the Grid game that came out in 2019. It includes the original base game plus every DLC character released so far, which brings the roster up to 23 characters. You can either buy the Super Edition as a standalone release, or you can pay a cheaper price to upgrade from your existing Standard Edition or Collector's Edition. Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is a 3v3 fighting game developed by Enway, who are well known for producing mobile phone games. While the company does have a Power Rangers game on phones called Power Rangers Legacy Wars, Battle for the Grid is a classic fighting game in the same vein as games like Street Fighter or Tekken. It features a control scheme that allows pretty much anyone of any skill level to pick up and play the game right away. Most combos, special attacks, supers, and ultimates can be executed with very simple button presses. It works in a similar way to Dragon Ball FighterZ, in the sense that you can pull off some really cool moves without having to put in much effort, but the game has a ton of depth in the combat for pro-level players who can really push the mechanics to the limit. You can tag your fighters in and out with a quick double tap of the shoulder buttons so that they can recover some health, and you can perform assist moves with a single press, which varies depending on the character. In regards to available game modes, you can of course play online against other people from around the world, which will increase your online rank and help match you with players at or around your skill level. You can also earn exclusive banners for your profile by winning matches online and by doing so with various characters. But do keep in mind that you will need PS Plus or Xbox Live Gold in order to play online. You can also play through Story Mode, which is based on the current Boom Studios Power Rangers comic series, specifically the Shattered Grid arc, which, without spoiling anything, is based on an alternate timeline version of Tommy Oliver, probably better known to most of you as the Green or White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, who was never saved from the evil green powers and instead took over his world. He then stole many different powers from many different Rangers and essentially conquered his world and many others. He then tries to invade our main Power Rangers timeline that we all know, and the story is basically about stopping him from doing so. There is of course more to it in the game and the comic books, but as I said, I don't really want to spoil anything. The mode itself has you playing as various characters from the story and fighting in story-based scenarios across 16 chapters. You then have the classic arcade mode where you can pick custom teams of 3 characters and fight through 7 different stages. There's also some minor story beats here and there that tie into the main narrative. And to round out the modes, you of course have the versus and training modes. Like most versus modes, it can be played single player or 2 player, while training mode offers a training dummy for you to test out your character's moves, and also a tutorial to help you learn the game. I'll also just mention here that the Super Edition includes both Ryu and Chun-Li from the Street Fighter series as playable characters, both of which have their normal and morphed versions available and control somewhat similarly to how they do in the Street Fighter games. It's not a 100% one-to-one control scheme, but if you can perform a Hadouken in Street Fighter, you can do it here in the same way. They are actually in the game for an official crossover. This came about when a YouTube channel called Bat in the Sun produced an episode of their very popular video series Superpower Beatdown, featuring the Green Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers versus Ryu from Street Fighter. The Superpower Beatdown videos are made using special effects and real-life martial artists who essentially cosplay as various TV, film, and comic book heroes and then fight to see who would win. The series is just for fun and the winner is determined by fan votes, but they always film an alternate ending anyway. The Green Ranger vs. Ryu video actually had Jason David Frank, who's played the original Green Ranger in the TV series and who's an accomplished martial artist himself, playing the Green Ranger in the short film. Not to mention there's also a cameo appearance from Jay Tavere, who played Vega in the So Bad It's Good Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter movie in 1994. The video became so popular that an official short film was made by Bat in the Sun to promote this game and its crossover. The short film had Ryu and the Green Ranger teaming up to take down M. Bison, but this time with help from Chun-Li and the Yellow Megaforce Ranger, who was played by the official actress from the TV show. I think both of these short films are brilliant, and I will have them linked below if you'd like to see them. I think they are 100% worth a watch. So now you should have some idea of what the game is and how it works, so I think this would be a good time to move into the personal opinion section, and we'll start with the positives. The first thing that immediately stood out to me was the presentation. The game uses a lot of artwork from the comic books, and for me, it really helped sell the story. I really enjoyed the comic books, and to see a lot of the story moved into the game was really cool for me personally. I think it's a more high stakes and real story than what we usually get from Power Rangers. I mean, I've been a fan since 1993, when I was 5 years old, and I still watch it to this day, but the TV show is very much aimed at a younger audience, which is fine of course, but the comics really feel like they were made primarily for adults who grew up with Power Rangers, and then to use the same story, albeit slightly different, in the game, I feel was a good choice. This next one is kind of a small thing, but for fans like myself, it's pretty nostalgic honestly. Some of the Rangers in the game are voiced by the real actors and voice actors from the TV show. You have the Mighty Morphin Green and White Ranger voiced by Jason David Frank, Mighty Morphin Red voiced by Austin St. John, and David J. Fielding as Zordon, to name but a few. I believe that most of the characters in the game aren't voiced by the original actors who played them, like for example Mighty Morphin Pink isn't voiced by Amy Jo Johnson, so when you hear the Green Ranger interacting with the Pink, it can sometimes be a bit odd, just because you know the voices so well. But I think the fact that they got any of them to come back and do these voices is pretty cool. Another thing that I found to be really good is the fact that the game is so accessible. Now, I'm not good at fighting games at all. I do enjoy some of them, but I'm just really not that good at them, I'll be honest. I mean, you know, in the footage you're seeing, I'm playing on mostly easy or normal, and I'm still getting my ass kicked, but I do enjoy the fights. It's just nice to be able to pull off some iconic moves or just to do cool things with my characters and not have to worry about learning complicated button combos and that kind of thing. From how the AI controlled characters have pulled off combos on me, I can tell that there is definitely room for people who are, you know, skilled at fighting games to do some awesome stuff with this, and that's great. Me though, I'm just a casual player of fighting games, but it is nice not to pick up a controller and feel like you can't do anything at all, if that makes sense. So I think that's my main positives out of the way, so let's look at some of the negatives. I think the first one is a bit of a nitpick more than anything, but I've always found it really weird that when anything is produced for the Power Rangers brand, whether it's toys, video games, or whatever the case may be, they always seem to give the male Rangers huge muscles, so they all kind of look like John Cena in spandex, which is not something I really want to see, if I'm honest. I mean, it's not really a big deal or anything, it doesn't ruin the game, it's just that's not how they look in the show, and basically never have. So why add it now? I just don't really understand it, I suppose. What I will say though is that since Hasbro took over everything Power Rangers, they've been producing some really cool collectibles and toys that look far closer to the way they do on the TV show, and that is a step in the right direction. As I said though, it's fine, it doesn't ruin the game or anything like that, it's just a bit odd to look at times. The only real, and I would say serious negative point that I could think of and point out with any real confidence would be the fact that the roster is pretty small, and some characters who really deserve to be their own unique fighter have been put into the game as skins. I believe the initial roster of the standard game only had 12 characters, and then a further 11 were added via paid DLC, which just feels a bit off to me. I mean, let's say that the game had 25 unique characters at launch, and then they added 5 via DLC, something like that. I think that would be more palatable, but to have virtually half your roster be DLC, I don't know, just feels bad. It just does not feel good to me. And as I mentioned, the Mighty Morphin White Ranger, who happens to be my personal favourite, is just a simple skin swap of the Green Ranger, and the Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger is just a skin swap of the Ranger Slayer character. So while I understand that this is quite common in fighting games, the roster isn't that big to begin with, so I don't think this was the right move. The only other thing I remember thinking to myself was, I wish you could unlock more stuff than just banners for your profile. Maybe if they were going to be reskinning characters, then perhaps they could just make a lot of them and have them as unlocks or something like that, or even something cool like unlocking videos from various Power Rangers seasons. I don't mean full episodes or anything like that, just a specific scene, or maybe the morphing sequences, or just something cool from the Power Rangers lore and history. But then again, now that I think about it, perhaps I was hoping for a bit too much from a game like this when it comes to extras and things like that. I mean, at the end of the day, the game isn't a full price game, but it is developed by a company known for mobile phone games, so I suppose this kind of monetization and somewhat lack of content shouldn't really be a surprise at this point. Really though, there isn't much more to talk about regarding negative experiences with the game, so let's move on to the conclusion and recommendation. I think that Power Rangers Battle for the Grid Super Edition is a fun and decent fighting game. I'm a casual fighting game player, and due to my love of the franchise, I probably derived more enjoyment from this game than people who aren't fans of Power Rangers. I do think that's an important point to make, as I'm not sure if the game would be worth the time of people who are really into their fighting games, because they're probably playing a better fighting game already. So I would say that if you're really into fighting games and you play them religiously and you often watch tournaments like EVO, things like that, I think this game would probably not be up to your standards. It's somewhat of a budget fighting game and I think it plays okay, but I don't know if it would have what you'd be looking for in a competitive sense. But of course, if all that's still true and you're a huge fan of Power Rangers, then I think you could enjoy it casually on the side of the more serious fighting games that you're probably already playing. If you really dislike fighting games in general, you never buy them, don't enjoy playing them, and they just aren't your thing, but you happen to love Power Rangers, I don't think the game has enough going for it to warrant your purchase. For me, I enjoy fighting games casually and occasionally, and I love Power Rangers, so for me, it was an okay purchase. But if you're just buying it for the Rangers name, and you're not really interested in fighting games, I would honestly suggest that you just skip it and read the comics instead. And lastly, if you're someone who plays a lot of different games, including the odd fighting game here and there like this one, and perhaps you really don't care for Power Rangers much, I still think you can enjoy the game without the Power Rangers stuff getting in the way or bothering you. I think as a fighting game, it's fun enough to be worth your time, and you can just kind of think of it as any standard fighting game with a Power Rangers skin. And if you're still not sure at that point, I would just say wait for a sale or skip it entirely. So there you go, that's my review of Power Rangers Battle for the Grid Super Edition. For me, I think it's a decent fighting game for casual players, but doesn't really do anything special in terms of mechanics or with the Power Rangers license. It's not a bad game, it just is what it is, and sometimes that's okay. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more like it, remember to leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. At the time of recording, we're aiming to get to 500 subscribers, so if you want to help us get there, you know what to do. All the important links are down in the video description as always. If you want to chat to me or ask any questions about the game, please feel free to do so in the comments section down below. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.